Hi, I wanted to show you a couple of the features with the arcade.make code, just to help you get started if you had any trouble getting started. And I'll show you a couple of the various classes of games. Notice, of course, that there are the tutorials down here, and you're welcome to also use these. And that I also included the tutorial videos in your Canvas page, and you're welcome to use those. So we'll start out just by creating a new project and giving it a name. And just click create. Now we're going to be using Blockly for this, so make for sure that it should come up this way, but make for sure that blocks is selected. At the point where you have your game created, you're welcome to turn it back over to JavaScript or Python to see what it would look like in JavaScript or Python. Just keep in mind in this course we're going to be programming in C++, but the reason that I have you doing this is just so you can get a little bit of experience with programming before you have to start trying to really battle with C++, because the syntax in C++ can be kind of challenging. So let's start out with just a generic background. So we're going to go to scene, and then we'll do the set background image to, and it's going to be blank. So just click this. It's going to pop it into our program here, and then we have a loop that says on start. So when the game controller activates in the simulation over here, on start will just get run once. So that's what we want to do. So take this, notice that this docks in just like a puzzle piece, and then we can click on this blank background, and then it'll bring us into the editor, and you're welcome to create a background. I'm just to quickly kind of show you the capabilities, I'm going to go to gallery and just select one of the images that are already in the gallery, and then when you're done editing, then you can click done. Now you'll see that the controller now updated, and you're seeing the background in the controller. Now we want to add a character, so any characters, whether they're the player or enemies or food or anything like that, those are all going to be called sprites, and so those are in this menu. So we'll click here, we'll do create, set sprite to, and we'll be able to define what it'll look like once we add it. So click it, and then we can dock it in. So I'm just going to dock it in down here. Now I need to give it some kind of an image. So again, I can just draw something in here. I've got the colors. You've got the different tools. But just to quickly put something in here, I'm just going to go grab a sprite that's already drawn. So that little bird image, and I click done. And then what you can do is you can change the name of it. So if you're trying to manage a lot of different sprites, maybe one is the player and one's an enemy, one's food, whatever, you can give them new names here. Just click on new variable. So I'm going to just call this one my player sprite, but it's perfectly fine to just leave it as my sprite. You can see that now updated here. And then these are the different default types of sprites that it has. And you can probably create your game just based on these default types. So this would be a player. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. But you could also do projectiles. You could do food and an enemy. And then again, you can create new different kinds if you want to create a game that does something more than just those 4 different types of sprite images. The idea with the sprite is that it's a graphic that's linked to a particular location, and then you're giving it some kind of functionality. So it's a type of what we're going to call later as an object, as in object-oriented programming that we can interact with. And then now we need to have the sprite do something. So we're going to go to controller, and then this first option, move my sprite with buttons. And then we'll dock that in. I changed the name here to my player sprite. The default was my sprite, but I can change that. Now, once I added my player sprite, it's here. So if I just change that, then it'll update. That gets rid of the little error message. The little triangle with the exclamation point in it was an error message. And then any of these that have the extension, so like the button here, you can click on that. And then the Vx is the velocity multiplier in X and the velocity multiplier in Y. So here's the controller, but you can also just use the arrow keys. So if we come over here, and that's what it's doing right now. When I'm just controlling with the arrow keys, but I could also use the mouse and control it this way too. Well, let me change these values and you can see how it'll update. If at any point it doesn't update down here, instead of this button, you'll see a play button, and you can just do a refresh and then play. As long as you don't have an error, then it should start. So now I'm holding that down and you can see how slow it's moving because I've changed the velocity multiplier. So the bigger number you put in here, the faster it's going to go. And the smaller number, the slower it's going to go. 100 is sort of the generic sort of reasonable speed for this. So let's add something that, that our player can now go and pick up. So let me add another sprite. Oops, I gave it an unallowed name, so it gave me an error message. Let's grab just a generic food picture, so let's say apple, or whatever that is. Okay, so we've got the player sprite and the food, but you can see as we're moving the player, they're not interacting. And then also when the simulation starts, both of the two sprites are right on top of each other. So under sprites, it has this option, set my sprite position to. So we can grab this. And then just make for sure that you update it to be the sprite that you want to change its position. So 0, 0 is this corner over here. And it gives you a visual of that. So let me come off that corner just a little bit and see if I can get it so that yeah, there we go. Now the sprite is visible. So let's say that in this very primitive game, we want the sprite to come down here and collect the food. So we want the sprites to be able to interact. So let's go back to sprites and we're going to add an event. So down here, this on sprite of kind player overlaps with other sprite of kind player. Let's grab this. You'll notice with these events, there's going to be different colors, but they're the same kind of shape as the start loop. So they have this rectangular outer shape, and then we can dock things inside. So we want the sprites to overlap, so this is good. But let's change this to sprite of kind player overlaps with other sprite of kind food. And that's what we've got here. And then let's see if we can make the food sprite then go away. So back in sprites, we've got the destroy my sprite. And then let's change this to be my food. And then again, you've got one of these little plus signs. And so you can change the effect that you want when it's destroyed. So let's see if this works. And I'm not getting it to automatically update, so I'm going to just manually start it. Sometimes it happens. So I'm navigating over, and sure enough now it's able to interact with and destroy the food. So this gives you an idea of how you could add two different sprites. Um, if you wanted to add an enemy in the mix instead of the food, you could also do that. And then notice that you can make sprites follow other sprites with this set command here as well. So hopefully this kind of gets you started, and then I'll do a separate video that'll show you how to set up a tile background, because that's slightly different.